What is going on, guys? You got Tone here, back for another draft analysis. This time we are doing a draft recap for the IBL, or the International Battling League, that I have been a part of. Now, I do apologize in advance. It has been a while since I uploaded anything to my channel. Life's been pretty hectic over the past couple of weeks, and to be frank, I didn't really have that mindset of uploading anything in particular, so I just tried to stay away and collect my thoughts for a bit. And so I felt as though now would be the right time, as in terms of the International Battling League, Season 2 ended. I made it to the playoffs despite my 5-7 record. Did lose in the quarterfinals as expected, but at least I kept the game close. It was only a 2-0, so I can't really complain. And my team wasn't the best, but I felt comfortable with it. But that was then, this is now. No more talk about the past, or Gen 6 for that matter. Sun and Moon meta has picked up. It has been a couple of weeks, and the IBL had decided that we would decide to have a little bit of an off-season league, so to speak. So what we did was 14 people took part in this open draft, in which every Pokemon in the Alolan decks is available to draft. You can draft any Pokemon in whatever position you want to draft them, with the exception of Solgaleo, Lunala, and Perfect 100% Zygarde. All three of those Pokemon were banned, but everything else in the Alolan decks is up for grabs. So with all that being said and done, I am now going to do my draft recap for my team. Each team is allowed to have 8 Pokemon for this off season, and there will be 7 weeks, 6 battles, so every team in the off season does get a bye week, so that's nice for not having to deal with hectic battling week in and week out. So, without further ado, I'm just going to run down the 8 Pokemon in which I drafted and my reasoning behind those mons. So, the draft order came out prior to all of the craziness, and I'll also link the stream of the IBL draft in the description down below in case you want to check that out. So like I said, the draft order came out, and I was fortunate enough, out of 14 teams, I was the number 2 pick. And with me being number 2, I already had 2 options in mind of what I wanted my pick to be. And funny enough, none of those mons were sniped from me. The number 1 pick actually was Nihilego, so I was very, very happy about that. And my main pick was not sniped, as you see here. That my number 2 pick in the IBL draft, off-season draft, was Tapu Lele, and I could not pass up Tapu Lele. It is just so good. Base 130 special attack, base 115 speed, Psychic Surge, prevents priority, boosts its Psychic Stab. Only walled by Steel types, but it does have some good coverage options with Focus Blast, although it's inaccurate. And Hidden Power Fire, which does hit pretty hard with its high special attack. 95 speed is pretty decent, considering we're only dealing with Alolan mons. And also, before I forget, we're also dealing with pre-bank only, not post-bank, so some Pokemon like Skarmory don't have access to Defog. Garchomp does not have access to Stealth Rock, stuff like that. So I had to keep that in mind before drafting my 8 mons. But still, Tapu Lele was pretty much a no-brainer for me because it hits so doggone hard. It is so good, and I just could not let that go. Let that pass me by for the number 2 pick, especially considering that I would have to wait quite a while before I went again with my next selection. And speaking of my next selection here, like I said, Tapu Lele does struggle with Steel types, so I needed to grab a Pokemon that can handle Steel types or weaken them to the point where Tapu Lele can shine. So with that all that being said, I was actually surprised that this Pokemon fell all the way to me with my round 2 pick, but I wasn't going to complain. So with that, my round 2 pick ended up being the Komomo, and my God, I don't even know how I got this mon, but it pairs up so nicely with Tapu Lele. Dragon fighting is great. It handles steel types, bars, stuff like Skarmory, Celesteela. Scissor's a little iffy and stuff like that, but just the pseudo legendary of Gen 7, you can't go wrong. Basically balanced stats up and down. Isn't limited to just being a one-trick pony. It can Dragon Dance, it can be an Autonomized Sweeper, it can go physical, it can go special. The list pretty much goes on and on. But Komomo plus Tapu Lele is just so much fun to try out, and I'm very intrigued to see how these two will pair up when it comes to my battles in the next couple of weeks. So speaking of which, I also try to upload said battles if possible, so it doesn't look like I just made this analysis and then just fell off the face of the earth again, which I promise won't happen again. So my second pick was Komomo. Pairs up nicely with Tapu Lele, can't go wrong. So round 3 came around, and I was initially thinking of doing Fairy Dragon Steel Core, but pretty much most of the Steel type Pokemon were already taken when it got to me again. Stuff like Celesteela was gone, Kartana, stuff like that, they were already taken. I could have went and picked up Metagross because it was still available, but at the same time, I didn't want to double up on typings just yet unless I had a reason to do so. And nothing against Metagross, I just needed something different in terms of my team. So with round 3 coming around, I figured that I would go after hazard removal. Pretty much because while not that many Pokemon in the Alolan decks get access to hazards, but I figured as though having hazard removal would be pretty nice to have. And there was one Pokemon that stood out above all the other removers that were remaining, and I couldn't pass it up because of the utility it brought. And the Pokemon I decided to go with round 3, it might have been a stretch, but I decided to go with Decidueye. And the reasoning for Decidueye is gets access to Defog, it's not weak to Stealth Rocks, has reliable recovery with Roost. It's a trap. It can trap opposing mons with its signature move, Spirit Shackle. It can U-turn out and pivot into either Tapu Lele or Komomo. It basically just does so many things for a team. And while its offenses aren't really the one that shine, it's used more for its defensive typing. Sort of like a mix between a Trevenant and Gourgeist, but slightly better in the sense of it's a hazard removal with reliable recovery and pivoting. So that's going to be very, very cool to try out. And Decidueye, while I didn't choose Decidueye myself when I got my Pokemon Moon, I always start with a water type, so don't hate me for that. But anyway, Decidueye is also a great mon. I figured I'd draft it simply because the utility it brings, the amount of sets it can run, the amount of utility it offers my team, but more importantly, it's a hazard remover with recovery and momentum. And that is just so nice to have, whether in a full draft league format or in an off-season league like this where we're just testing out the mons. So I can't go wrong there. Now, moving on to round 4, there were some options for me in terms of where I wanted to go with my draft, and the main thing I really wanted so far was I wanted some added bulk. Nothing other than the Decidueye. Komomo has some good defenses, but mostly it would probably be run offensively. Same thing with Tapu Lele. So I wanted something that can come in and be a tank. And while I was initially planning on trying to get Porygon 2, which somehow fell to round 4. It was drafted right before my pick. I was a little bit upset, but not so much to the point where I did have a backup plan for Porygon 2, and the backup plan was a Pokemon I actually had on my Season 1 IBL team, and it fits very, very nicely with my team. So with my round 4 pick, I decided to go with Snorlax. Snorlax is just so gosh darn tanky. And it also complements a bunch of my mons on my team, pretty much because Snorlax's lone fighting weakness is covered up by Decidueye, which is immune to fighting attacks, whereas Decidueye's fighting and ice weakness, as well as Komomo's ice weakness, is covered up by Snorlax thanks to Thick Fat. And it's not just limited to just one set. It can be a bulky Assault Vest user, it can run Curse, it can run Choice Band if I really wanted to. But the possibilities are just endless for this mon, and I simply love big tanks like Snorlax, which aren't limited to just one thing. If anyone knows how I draft, I usually just draft a Pokemon. I usually draft Pokemon with a lot of versatility. I just love versatile mons, and I pretty much got 4 versatile mons right there in my first 4 picks with Tapu Lele, Komomo, Decidueye, and now Snorlax. So I can't really complain about my draft so far. I am absolutely loving it, and the last 4 months only gets better for me here. So after Snorlax, I move on to round 5, and it was kind of difficult to think of something to pick up. But at the same time, I realized that I had hazard removal in the Decidueye, but I had no hazards of my own on my team. So with my round 5 pick, I decided to pick up a mon that's another bulky mon that can switch into a lot of things in general and provide me with some very, very nice hazards in spikes and toxic spikes. And that Pokemon is none other than Garbodor. And Garbodor, another mon that complements my team very, very well. Considering that Garbodor covers for Komomo's 4 times weakness to Fairy. Garbodor's ground weakness is covered up by Decidueye. Snorlax can take some psychic attacks. Tapu Lele resists psychic itself. And more importantly, Garbodor gives me toxic spikes. It gives me spikes. It gives me a physically defensive mon. I can slap an I can slap Rocky Helmet on to punch physical attackers. Has access to Aftermath, so I can punch physical attackers even more. And the constant switching between U-turn Decidueye into wall breakers like Tapu Lele, setup sweepers in Komomo, and toxic spikes plus Curse Blast is just so amazing to try out. And for the most part, I couldn't pass with Garbodor simply because I needed hazards. Spikes plus toxic spikes sounds too good to pass up. And it can go physical defensive, it can run Suicide League with Explosion. So yeah, it's pretty much like Gen 6 mechanics all over again for Garbodor, but getting a little bit better. And it gives me a switch into stuff like the other Tapus, like Tapu Bulu. Potentially something like Tapu Fini if it's not like a fully offensive set. So I have my options there. So I got Garbodor. Now with round 6, I decided I couldn't wait anymore to figure out how to wrap up the rest of my draft with the last 3 picks of my team. And I decided I needed Stealth Rocks. It's not a given that spikes and toxic spikes from Garbodor was going to come every single week. So I needed to find a Stealth Rocker. And I was surprised that this mon was actually still available, especially with the new toy it got from Gen 6 to Gen 7. And that Pokemon that I got with my round 6 pick just so happened to be Gigalith. And Gigalith with that new toy and the ability Sand Stream, giving me sand boosting its special defense by 1 stage because of Sandstream. It gives me a stealth rocker. It hits very, very hard. Its coverage doesn't have the best coverage outside of Earthquake or stuff like Heavy Slam. It doesn't have access to move tutor moves like Superpower, but I can utilize Gigalith mainly because it is a bulky tank and it hits very hard even without attack investment. Base 135 attack, base 130 defense. It's nothing to sneeze at. Forever in the PU tier because it was outclassed by Golem, but at least with the ability Sandstream, still has 30 on there. At least with the ability Sandstream, it had something over Golem, which is very, very nice. So with that, I have my Gigalith, I have a Stealth Rocker, I have Spikes and Toxic Spikes with Garbodor, and I have Hazard Removal with Decidueye. And now moving into my last 2 picks, I have Sandstream. It only felt necessary that to go with Sandstream, I need a Sand Abuser. And the only Sand Abuser that goes perfectly well with Gigalith, and since Midday Lycanroc was already gone, there's only one Pokemon left that can abuse the Sand, and its name is Stoutland. I got Sand Rush Stoutland to be complemented by Sandstream Gigalith. I got Spike support with Garbodor, Toxic Spikes with Garbodor, and I got U-turn support with Decidueye. That is just crazy how I got how I got these mons and how I got the Sand Core. So I'm gonna have a lot of fun with Tapu Lele plus Sand, which is gonna be pretty great. It doesn't have access to Superpower because Superpower is a Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire move tutor move, but if my opponent does not have a normal resist, Stoutland is just going to start wrecking lives with in the Sand. Especially I get access to at least 7 to 8 turns of Sand with Stoutland. Slap on a choice band on Stoutland. It's just going to go to town, and it already has solid natural bulk as it is, so I don't really need to invest fully into defenses. I don't need to invest fully into speed because of Sand Rush. And there are also going to be times where I can actually bring Scrappy just to bluff Sand Rush, just in case my opponent has some annoying ghost types like Gengar and I don't really feel like predicting. There's that. So I can bluff like Choice Scarf, Scrappy, Sand, Stoutland as like a little bit of a gimmick, but Sand plus Hazards and then Tapu Lele wall breaking for Stoutland. It just sounds amazing on paper, and it just comes down to me in terms of how well I can abuse it. And with my final pick, looking at my 7 mons, the main problem I had was I didn't really have a switch into electric attacks, like Pokemon like Tapu Koko, stuff like Magnezone could freely Volt Switch on my team because my electric resist was Decidueye, and it can Volt Switch on everything else. So I needed something that can switch on electric attacks, and at the same time, I felt like I needed a bulky water type. My primary pick for my last round was going to be Gastrodon, but Gastrodon was gone before it came to me. But luckily, there was my backup plan that I had planned out. So with my final pick, I decided to bring back an old friend from the NES, and that friend is the Lantern. Lantern, bulky water type, Volt Absorb, take those electric attacks for days. Water Absorb, I can deal with rain teams like Pelipper with Golduck, or Politoed, Poliwrath, stuff like that. Doesn't have reliable recovery, but the fact that I have access to a water immunity for Gigalith, which is great. I have electric immunity in Lantern now, also great. And on top of that, I also got Volt Turn with Lantern plus Decidueye. So I can't really complain about the 8 mons I got, and Lantern is pretty underrated in terms of draft format. I think I used it pretty well in the NES, but that's just me. That's just me giving my own personal opinion, not trying to brag or anything. So yeah, those are my 8 mons. To recap: Tapu Lele, Komomo, Decidueye, Snorlax, Garbodor, Gigalith, Stoutland, and Lantern. I pretty much got everything needed in a standard draft format, I believe. In the fact that I have Stealth Rocks in Gigalith, I have Spikes and Toxic Spikes, which are optional, but they're always nice to have in Garbodor. I have Volt Turn with Lantern and Decidueye. I have Hazard Removal in Defog Decidueye. I have a Wall Breaker in Tapu Lele, a Setup Sweeper in both Komomo and Snorlax. And my team as a whole complements itself very, very nicely. The only real problem I can see with my team is the fact that I have 3 Pokemon weak to ground, and my ground resist is Decidueye, so that might be a little bit of an issue. There's also an issue that my fastest Pokemon from a natural standpoint is Tapu Lele, as everything else is below base 95 speed, or below a base like 80 speed or below. But I have Sand Rush. I have Sand plus Sand Rush Stoutland, so that mitigates the speed a little bit. I also have T-Wave Lantern I could run just for the heck of it, if that's really an issue. But yeah, I'm going to stop rambling on here. That is my draft recap for the IBL Offseason Alolan League. So if you did enjoy my draft, or if you feel as though I could have drafted something else in the Alolan decks that you think would work better on my team, feel free to leave a comment in the section down below. I also will leave a description of the draft stream so you can see what everybody else in the league decided to pick and give your comments there. But yeah, I'm very confident. I feel very, very happy about this draft. I'm not going to lie. And I'm very excited to get this off-season underway for the most part, because who wouldn't be hyped about the Sun and Moon meta? There's so many different things to deal with. There's so many mons to try out, and the fact that I got this draft just makes me even more excited to get the battles underway. And week 1 will be coming in the next week or so. As to when I will upload it, it will probably be sometime over the weekend, depending on when I get the battle done. I'll also try to do team builders, and I'll put up a team builder in the battle simultaneously like I did with past videos. So no need to worry about that, so you can see my thought process and why I brought these mons and the EV spreads and all that stuff. I'll try to be as thorough as possible. So I'm going to end it there. Hope you guys enjoy, and until the next time, my name's Anthony, aka Tone, and I'm going to catch you guys on the flip side. Later.